Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of This Ain't Fake Brother. It is the 27th of August 2014, would be the earliest time you could be listening to this. I'm joined as always by Ken Murphy. How you doing, Ken?
Hello, Mr. Marshall. How are you?
I'm stupendous.
You're Superbrawl, are you?
I am, yeah. We've got a Superbrawl 3 review for you. That's a classic review of the week. Ken picked that. We'll talk all in that later. I have so much to say.
Incidentally,
yeah.
Over the course of the next 90 minutes, if you haven't already decided what we're reviewing this week, make sure you come up with it while I'm
sugar.
While I'm ranting and raving. You
Shoot at
something.
I will. I definitely will. Okay, so we've got Superbrawl 3 at the end of the show. We're going to be talking all the week's news up next, and then we're going to recap Monday Night Raw is War and talk about what's going down in Podcast Town. First off, let's go to the news. So TNA have a suitor for their Impact show. And this is a network, and I'm pretty clued in. I go to States every year. There's, those nights where I just can't bring myself to go out for the fifth on the trot. So I'm going through American TV. It's my little window.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of or seen the Velocity channel before.
No, me neither. This is a big step down for them if it happens. It's like going from Layla to Summer Rae or something like that.
Or the other way around.
It's huge because the money is believed to be less than a quarter of what they're earning now, and they get between $12 and $15 million now.
And does the majority of that money go to paying the talent, or does it go to the production of Impact? Because I was under the impression it was more so the production of Impact, which would lead me to believe if they do go Velocity, it will look like ROH.
Yeah, I believe it's both. I mean, because that is the $12 to $15 million. We'll say 13 because that's a figure I've heard that they get from Spike TV is their only major revenue stream. They make very little on merchandise. They lose on house shows. They lose on pay-per-view. So they live off their TV money. So if they go from earning $13 million a year to earning $3 million, and they're losing 15% of that to the agency that's negotiating for them, then they're in serious trouble.
Yeah, so not only would we see huge changes to the roster, which we're already seeing with the bigger
sorry to interrupt you. I can't imagine that this would not be the time where Dixie's parents sit her down and say, "Listen, sweetheart, she gave a good go, but we're not pissing any more money away." Because, I mean, once they go to Velocity, they're never getting any higher again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're not going to ascend again. They've had their ascension, and that's it. I mean, the company will never turn a profit at that point, and they've got to be $80-90 million in the hole at this point. They'll be losing millions and millions every year to keep it afloat. What's the point?
Yeah, even if they, it would just, if they're getting less
no,
money,
I think
no matter what, if
that's all they can
bad.
get, I think they're done.
Yeah, but if I would agree, if they do miraculously somehow get any kind of production on Velocity, though, you would be pretty sure that it wouldn't look or smell anything like TNA that we've known over the last couple of years. Obviously, we see the higher earners going, getting the boot,
dropping like flies.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the changes.
It'll just be another indie. You know what I mean?
I just it needs to end quick, and something needs to start up quick.
That's your idea that it has to go away so something can replace it is wonderful. Only it's apparent Spike don't want wrestling. So
here's the thing, though: if something got backing, whether it's Global Force, whether it's AAA, whether it's something,
AAA in America has been going for 2 decades and it's never going to happen.
But look what happened with TNA. They eventually got Spike's attention, and this was after Spike let go overall.
Okay, all I would say is this. Nobody wants main event. No one wants NXT. No one wants Superstars. No one wants Impact.
And I think that's fair, though, because when people bring up that conversation, they don't usually bring up the fact that it's all relative rather than just the base mark of a rating. People might want that because they know that WWE's main show is on a rival network, the USA Network. Whether it's under the Viacom, and then if it's under the Viacom banner, then the other argument is they already have the big show, so why do they need the smaller ones? So it's all relative, Ken, to the rating itself.
Here's what I would say. You're guaranteed about somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million viewers with TNA. If they cannot get anyone, aside from a channel with 48 million potential viewers, to put them on the air, then I don't believe there's any chance that Global Force Wrestling is getting $15 million a year from somebody to start up a brand new wrestling show.
I don't think that they're going to get money from somebody. What I would suggest, the only way it would have to be an organic process. So basically, the first thing they'd have to do is get noticed. They'd have to be somewhere on some subsidiary before they get picked up, kind of like what TNA did. I'm not saying you want to go to weekly pay-per-views, but you want to be... They went from Sportsnet to Spike. So it needs to be something similar to that. And the main thing is, whatever about the 1.5 million, it's the money that Spike are putting in, I think, is what they're most upset about. Because it's never growing. So it's never growing, but it's an investment that is just completely stagnant. A company that would come forward and get an opportunity on primetime television hopefully wouldn't have the cost demands of TNA, because they wouldn't have the same amount of people on as high wages. So one would hope if somebody did take them on, it would be a case where they wouldn't have to finance the idea of wrestling as much as seeing if wrestling can pop a rating.
I hope that you're right, but I believe that if TNA goes away, that we just have no number 2 anymore.
I think it will take a while, if it did happen. But I just, for me, it's gonna be very, very interesting anyway to see what happens with TNA and Velocity. It was pretty much said yesterday, now moving on to WWE news, that Wade Barrett and Daniel Bryan are both booked for the November European tour. Wade is announced for the 6th in London. Daniel Bryan is announced for the 5th in Cardiff. So obviously, Barrett coming back at that stage is no great shakes. But is this a really good sign about Bryan, or is it just a possibility that he's just going to be a body on the tour rather than back to work?
That's what's been reported, is that it's just they need names to try and draw people to the shows, and that he's not going to be wrestling. So
okay. There is no other update on the second surgery, the nerve damage surgery, as it stands right now, is there?
No, not yet. No. They haven't even got a diagnosis, so if it is what they believe it to be, which would be a surgery in his elbow, moving a nerve. Anyway, if that's surgery, it's called Tommy John surgery. It's 3-month minimum recovery, so there's just no way he's going to wrestle in November. Yeah,
well, the idea is that they're trying to see if he can naturally kind of get away with not having to have it. Is that it? They're trying to see if, like, organically.
No, it's because they're not even sure if they're not 100% sure if that's the issue.
Okay.
So they don't have a diagnosis. They don't yet know for 100% fact what's wrong. All they know is he has no strength. He can't even pick up a can with his I believe it's his right arm.
Yeah.
So it's not a good story.
Terrible stuff. So there's obviously the we'd be remiss if we didn't speak about this Ice Bucket Challenge Fandango. There was a few notable WWE ones, is why I'm bringing it up. The most notable of all is, I think, the Undertaker's one. Did you see this?
His Ice Bucket Challenge?
Yes.
It just was a shadow.
It was a shadow. He called himself Mark Calloway. He was obviously there with
his wife,
a very young children and wife. And it was just so surreal, like, you know, like the fact he had himself in the shadow. It's like he
still really wants to protect the character.
It's like I kind of read it as he really, really, really wants to get out and be Mark Calloway, but he's not yet sure if he can, because he might have to go back.
I don't even know if he'd have to go back, but I do know, you know, there was one about 18 months ago, but there's been quite a few pictures floating of him recently, just you know, out and about, getting photos taken with fans, you know, at a deli, at a restaurant, or whatever. And you know, he looks older than his years. You know?
Yeah,
he could pass for 60. You know,
absolutely. That was an interesting one. Did you notice he nominated Godfather?
I didn't. No,
he nominated Charles Wright, which I thought was flipping hilarious. I thought it was really nice of Brett to nominate Flair. They're clearly on the same page now.
Yeah, yep.
I thought that was great. That was
very cool.
My favorite. And any other good ones? I think we talked about Vince's before with putting the bucket on his head and
Bully Ray and Velvet Sky had a fun one.
I didn't really watch this. Explain this, because it's led to rumours pretty much that they're an item now, right?
They are an item.
Is that a fact?
Yeah,
Jack?
that's a fact. Yeah. You
okay.
didn't know it?
No, I did not.
Yeah, I've been known for a few months. Poor old Chris Sabin.
That's right.
Lost the belt, then lost his girl. Yeah, they're an item. Yeah, but I have to say, I don't know if this was at her house or his house, but it was like, it just didn't look like it didn't reflect well on TNA, to be honest.
If the talent had a house such as this.
Yeah, I'd say it was probably hers.
Okay, very good. Any other good ones? But did you see Wade Barrett's one?
Wade Barrett.
He was attacked by a kind of a scuba diver.
To be perfectly honest with you, it's all kind of go. Hey, wait a minute! Speaking of this Facebook challenge, where is yours?
You see, this was a leading question.
I see.
Ken was one of 3 people who've nominated myself.
Incidentally, by the way, I had to do it twice.
I know you did.
Yeah.
And I loved your one. And let me start before I tell you why I'm not doing it by saying I loved your one and the creativity of it.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you didn't already have wet hair in it, it would have been even better.
But that's because I'd already done it.
I know. I felt so sad for you, because if I was to, and trust me, it did enter my mind back about a week ago about doing it or getting nominated. I thought, like, the only way I'd do it is if I had a creative idea.
A gimmick, yeah.
But at this stage, I just can't hack it.
I agree, yeah.
I feel it's charity bullying. I feel it's it's just a look at me thing. Like the only way it's acceptable is the kind of one you did. That was great, and I just can't. And do you know how many people in Ireland have motor neurons?
Very few, I'd say.
400.
Here's the thing, though. When I got nominated, first of all, I saw it coming. I saw my friend Kevin Grant nominated me, but before I'd seen someone who nominated a friend of his. We were him and this chap were co-best men at Kevin's wedding. So I knew when Paul was nominated, I was like, he's going to nominate Granty, and then Granty's going to nominate. I just could see it coming down the line.
Okay.
And I was actually like you. I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? But the funniest thing about it is, I had no idea. I knew it was ALS. I had no idea what ALS was until long after I'd done it. As far as I was concerned, it's just, this is going to sound probably un-PC, but at this point, it's not really about charity. It's just about people getting other people to fucking dump water over their head.
You see, this is my thing. That's why I'm against it, really. I just feel it's a real look at me.
But that's why I did it, because I thought, it's just for lack of a better term, for the banter.
It's just for the banter, and that's fine. But the fact it's for ALS is very dubious. Another one. Did you see the Hammer or Sean's one?
Sweet Sean Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he absolutely nailed it.
He had that was solid.
Yeah, he had an incredible one. But yeah, I just it's gone too far. Kevin Steen is reported down to NXT as of Monday, the day Raw aired or was shot, 25th of this month. Of all the guys they've signed ever, and I include Chris Hero in this and Cole Cabana over the last few years that had a name on the indies. I've never been so I don't even want to say perplexed, but I'm really I'm so anxious to see what they do with him.
Really?
I just don't know how it works. Look at him.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works. And what made him get over it everywhere else? Surely he won't be allowed to here.
Yeah, I had the same thought about Moxley when they were signing him. I just thought, I didn't see how it would work. Because I'd seen this guy 2 feet in front of me, and he just was like so slimy.
You talked about seeing him last week, yeah. But did you not even think he had the verbals? Like, at least, like, the thing about Steen and people talking about him being great promo, he's more Shane Douglas when Moxley would be more Roddy Piper. Douglas Douglas and Kevin Steen would rely on a bit of cursing and smashing people's knees into oblivion. But in terms of Moxley, he never really had to. He always kind of had something. He just was able to do
he had a
promos.
certain charisma. I just thought him just didn't fit with them. But now that they've let him go, look how terrific he's done since he's been there. I don't expect him to change him too much. I mean, obviously they change his name, but
Are they?
I'm sure they will.
Here's the thing, Ken. Kenta,
Mr.
Devitt,
Kenta, yeah.
and Steen were all announced on the website under those names, and not one of them has been rebranded with a name yet. Now, I know they haven't debuted on NXT, there's still time, but I think times they are changing.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I know when Sin Cara signed, he was Mystico, but they rebranded him within the article, do you know what I mean?
That's right.
So maybe
that is
we'll
right. At the press conference, yeah. But at Kenta's press conference with Hogan, it's
Kenta was always going to be Kenta because it's the Japanese market. Maybe Devitt is the same thinking. You mentioned that on a previous podcast.
As in what it means to Japanese market, yeah.
Yeah, but Steen, I don't know. I would change that name.
Yeah, I'm sure there probably is better names. Okay, segue, John Moxley. The Shield documentary that was out on the network this week.
Yep.
People were really, really fond of it. What did you think of it?
I thought it was... it had moments of entertainment value, but it wasn't nearly as good as what I think I'd been expecting from what I'd been hearing.
Okay. For me, I really liked the Seth backstory. I really liked the Dean backstory. Actually, in fact, all their backstory stuff, the footage that they had of Dean and Seth were good. The football footage that they had of Roman was good. I really like the way that they're starting to acknowledge ROH and Dragon Gate. They've got Gabe Sapolsky. 2 WWE documentaries in a row I've watched, and they've had Gabe Sapolsky on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The WWE ref is named.
So you watched the Heyman thing?
I have watched Heyman thing.
Okay, yeah. Because you hadn't last time we spoke about it.
Oh, I had weeks ago, yeah.
No, last time when I spoke about it.
On the podcast. Oh, okay. Yeah. They had the former CZW talent who's now a ref there. His name escapes me. Do you remember his name? Whether it's his ref name or his CZW name.
What does he look like?
Now he's very tanned. He dropped a lot of weight and he's kind of aged a bit. But they're showing clips of him and Moxley from about 6 years ago.
No, are you talking about Necro Butchers?
I'm definitely not talking about Necro Butcher. Anyway, he was in CZW. Now he's a ref in WWE.
I don't remember this.
Yeah, I didn't know he was a ref until they showed the clip of the match and showed him. Do you remember them interviewing a very tan small ref about Dean Ambrose?
Not really, but I watched this very late at night.
Fair enough. The second half of the documentary starts going into not the second half, but the tail end of the documentary starts going into stuff about the actual
I
SummerSlam
just
matches.
couldn't watch the end of it.
Not super. Now let's talk about the network, because this was announced on
What did
Raw.
you
Nitro.
Yeah.
Nitro is now going on. So they said 100 hours of Nitro.
100 hours of Nitro, yeah. Which
Brings
is about,
us up to like almost the end of '96. I'd say.
that's almost exactly what I would say it is, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm fucking pissed, man, because I started the.
I know you did. And remember I said I was going to do the same thing, and then when I realized the network is going to be available over here, I said I'm going to hold off. So I've been watching Raws, and I'm up to the end of 93. I've just been watching bits and pieces.
Now the thing is, they won't have the corresponding Raws. It seems.
Are they not
No.
caught up yet?
No, they don't. No, 96 Raws are few and far between.
No, but 95 I thought they would have been up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think they have that many.
I know I watched the September 94 Raws.
Okay.
Because they were adding, I think it was 5... Yeah, they were showing one Raw a day in the live stream and adding 5 a week.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so they've
Maybe
been
we will
doing that
get
for like
up, yeah,
4 or
maybe.
5 months.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't know if they were still doing that. That's very interesting.
I don't know if they still are, but I know that they were... Because I made a point of going to watch the September 94 Raw, so... My idea was... that's why I've been working my way through WCW from the 80s, with the idea that I'll get up as far as 95 and I'll be able to start watching the Raws and the Nitros together.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's going to be very interesting. I can't wait. I hope they're not. This is the one thing for me. I've seen all the 96 ones. I started the night Scott Hall debuted. I've been watching. For those of you who don't know, I've been taking my sweet ass time because there's so much actual current wrestling. But myself and my fiance have been watching from the night Hall debuted on Nitro, corresponding Raws, Nitros, and pay-per-views, never going out of order with itself. And it's been incredible. But I've literally been doing it for like a year and a half now. It's because it's tough going. But I'm up to May 97 now. I've only got a year into it. I can't wait to go back and see if there's much edited out, because some of those Nitros, for every reason you can imagine, are gold. You know,
Okay, yeah.
especially the music stuff.
Oh, so you've recently watched the one with Piper and his team for Uncensored.
The team that then get dropped. Completely.
Yes, that segment.
Okay, the segment where he gets the team,
Fucking incredible.
where it's him just fighting men.
Yeah,
and,
and the crowd, and then he's like, "How about old Craig here?" The crowd are like, "Ooh," and he's like, "Okay." So I read the Observer from that week. I mean, that whole thing was such a clusterfuck.
And it was all Piper's idea, I presume.
Yeah, it was all Piper. Yeah,
All Piper, and I didn't even know that, but I just knew it by watching. You know what I mean? John Tent was one of the guys,
is he? Yeah, he was. Yeah,
even though he
and
had,
who
like,
else?
just
Luther
been in a
Reigns
feud.
is one of the guys.
Was he?
Yeah, and it was reported in the Observer as a big green guy named Bill Goldberg, because Dave got his names wrong.
Ah,
There you go.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah, no, that was unbelievable. And the next week, it's one of the Panama City shows, and he brings them all out in kilts and so on and so forth. And then they just get dropped.
I just remember at the end of the angle, they're all fighting each other, and it's just like, oh, gee. It's actually like me and my mates, let's do a wrestling angle thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Then they get dropped for the Four Horsemen
Yeah,
in exchange for the Four Horsemen. So that's just absolutely
decent
fascinating.
trade up there.
Okay. Yeah, well, like this Nitro stuff is pretty interesting. I really look forward to it, and it's been asked for a long time. Like, people are dying for it, you know what I mean? So it should have been there from the start, perhaps. Okay, so Monday Night Raw we'll talk about next. This was I've been obviously slightly more favourable on the TVs than Ken has, but I will openly say that the weeks and the string of good to great shows has officially come to an end. Everything was wrong with this show, Ken. Everything that could have been wrong with the show was wrong with the show. Nothing clicked. Nothing that could have been good on paper actually turned out to be good, except for one thing.
There was no good wrestling, interestingly.
This was the other thing. Everything felt so rushed. Nothing felt like it got going. And then the third hour, oh my.
Slater Gator out there.
You see, what happened was, for those of you who don't know, the Emmys were on last night in the States, so they packed the first 2 hours to go against it. And the third hour was just, it was incredible. It was unbelievable.
Let me just hang on and have a look at this third hour. Oh yeah, Bo Dallas, Kofi Kingston, Los Matadores versus Slater Gator. Yeah, that's not great, is it?
The biggest news coming out of both those matches is just the fact that the one which Diego or Fernando is back now.
Yes, yeah.
That's the only thing I took from it.
All right, let's get cracking on this show.
Sure. So it took place from the Honda Center in Anaheim, which is the former Anaheim Pond, the host of WrestleMania's 12-16.
Whenever I think of this, Ronda Rousey's debut UFC fight was in this building.
Oh, yeah.
And for weeks, on the MMA Hour, all I heard was Ronda at the Honda. That's how it was being billed. So whenever I hear the Honda Center, I always think of, because you know the way Ronda, if you were Brazilian, would be
Oh, yeah.
Honda. Anyway,
That's
go on.
fantastic. Okay, so this segment that opened the show was advertised ahead of time because...
Actually, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm trying here, Ken.
I know. Have you seen The Expendables 3?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to know what you thought of Ronda if you had.
Is it good? Well, I thought the second one was the worst film I've ever seen, so I don't...
I actually didn't watch the second one. I did. I really enjoyed the first, though.
First one was okay.
Did you see it in the cinema?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I thought it was good in the cinema. I mean, what do you want from it? It's a 2.5.
The second one, though, is just...
I would say you wouldn't like the third one either then. But
how was Ronda?
She was good. She didn't have much, but they gave her... she's actually, believe it or not, she's the only female speaking part in the entire film, which I found interesting. But yeah, she did fine, yeah.
Okay, fair play to Ronda. This was being billed as a Hall of Fame... What was the word they used, Ken?
Forum.
So they had an
She called it the board.
They had an extra announce table in the ring. They brought out Hogan, Flair, and Shawn Michaels. This is incredible. When you think about it, like, it's an incredible cast, and it's kind of the perfect thing to put out if you were combating the Emmys. They were there to talk about the Cena versus Lesnar rematch.
I must just comment that Shawn was wearing a T-shirt that said Remington on it, like the hair gimmick. You know what I mean?
Remington.
Yeah.
Oh, like the shaver.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know, and
Is
it
he
was the same
sponsored by
logo.
them
He was wearing like a suit jacket and a Remington T-shirt. Hogan was dressed in his usual gimmick, and I have to say, I think Flair looks better now than he has in a decade.
Let me see. His face started melting after he fought Shawn at Bad Blood 2003.
He looks more and more like Fove's granddad every day, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does a bit. Does Granty listen to the show? You mentioned him earlier.
Granty, I don't think so. I think he
He's
takes 90
looking
minutes
rough.
for
Man.
wrestling.
He's looking rough. All right, so speaking of people who are looking rough, these three, it is an incredible panel, though. You've got, like, the biggest draw, longevity-wise, in the history of pro wrestling. You've got what everybody who's currently actively wrestling think are the two greatest of all time as well. That's fantastic.
Do you know what I couldn't help but think when I was sitting there? Because clearly they were kind of anointing these as the three chosen ones.
Yeah.
You know Brett was somewhere stewing watching this on television, giving it 4 out of 10.
Yeah, he's only giving Hogan a 4 max. He gives Shawn a 5, but he would have given him higher if the whole shit didn't go down. Flair, jury's out. The one thing about Flair is he definitely gives Flair a different score to the score he probably gave him about 10 years ago. Anyway, so the story here was that Shawn was playing the subtle heel when asked, Michael was mediating, they were asked about Cena's chances in the rematch. Michael said there was no chance. Flair was slightly more in the middle, but then eventually came to the conclusion that Shawn was probably right. And then Hogan was playing the complete and utter babyface. This is one of those examples, they've only done twice since they brought Hogan back on television, where he wasn't doing the Hogan character. He was talking in his factual, I'm in my 60s and I smoke a joint every day voice. And Hogan had the best dialogue of everybody. We started talking about, man, I remember their match in Chicago.
Yeah.
Cena took a beating the whole time, but he came back. This is their rubber match. Hogan didn't flub one word. Yeah. So I actually thought this was really good until John Cena came out. And John Cena's promo, this is...
Can I just say that Steve Austin loved this promo?
No, did he?
Yeah.
Well, it's look, listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion. My opinion. But... this promo, like, first off, Cena's not selling anything.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Which killed it dead. Secondly, it really wasn't much different to any other Cena promo. Basically, he said that he'd been humbled. He said that he knew it would be an ass-kicking. But he said that he can't be written off because his mantra is still blah, blah, blah. All the same stuff you've ever heard before. Like, this was John Cena's chance to win everybody over, in my opinion. This was a key promo. And it ended with him saying, I'm not going to Night of Champions to
beat Brock Lesnar. I'm going to beat Brock Lesnar's ass.
And then, of course, John Cena being John Cena and the universe turning against him, he quivered terribly when he said the word ass. I don't know if you noticed this. So the big punchline was, I'm not going to Night of Champions to beat Brock Lesnar. I'm going to beat Brock Lesnar's ass. It was fucking awful, in my opinion.
All right.
What do you think of this promo, Ken?
I thought it was fine.
Okay, all right. Rusev and Jack Swagger was advertised before they went to ad break, so they were clearly like just packing the show as much as they could to go against the Emmys. This was a strange one because I was expecting either Swagger to go over to try and redeem anything that had happened on the last two pay-per-views, Ken, or I was thinking it would end with Rusev beating down Swagger and them continuing the Mark Henry storyline that they started last week. Mm-hmm. Neither of these things happened.
Yep.
Swagger took a lot of the match until Rusev started going after the injured ribs, and he just.
I love this finish.
Yeah, this is the kind of 3 times in a week, 4 times in a week, in fact. So explain the finish.
Basically, Rusev kept working over Swagger's ribs. He had him up against the ropes, working on the ribs, kicking them. Then he had Swagger on the mat, stomping on them. And, I would have to talk for 3-4 minutes to really emphasize this because he really was working the ribs to the point that when the referee finally did stop it, it felt justified. But I think this is a real key thing for them if they can establish ref stoppage finish. And I would totally rip off the UFC in terms of, or the MMA rather, in terms of getting the referee to dive between them, dramatically kind of thing.
You know what? It's going to take a while, and they need to do it gradually. It can't just be like one of those things that they get their idea and they go with it, and then they stop and start. It needs to be. This is the perfect way to introduce it, and if it does end up with that happening, I'd be all for it, 100%.
Yeah, I think you maybe are they establishing it with the idea that they'll do that with Cena Lesnar 3?
I don't know. It was reported in the Observer this week that the plan for Cena Lesnar 3 is that Cena's basically going to get his. He's going to kind of get his win back without winning, and he's going to get cost the match, which will lead to his next feud.
I don't know. I have read some people theorizing. Finn Martin, formerly of Power Slam fame, reckons Lesnar is going down.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it's the thing of what are they going to do? There's all these theories about Lesnar's going to keep it for the next 6 months, right?
Yeah.
They're already over his match quota. You know what I mean? What are they going to do? Pay him another $5 million so he's a title run? You know what I mean?
One thing for sure is Lesnar's last match, if he doesn't resign, is clearly going to be at Mania. I really think Dave Meltzer also today said that both Vince and Triple H, because there's been rumors about friction when it comes to the Reigns push. Dave Meltzer answered a question on this today, saying that they're fully behind Reigns. Now, could they do Reigns and Cena? Yeah, they could do Reigns and Cena. But if Lesnar loses the belt, I think it's pretty obvious we're either getting to take a rematch or we're getting Lesnar and Rock.
If Cena wins, do you complain online?
I don't complain well, it's my podcast is online, so yeah,
true,
I complain online. Now I officially complain online. Oh, I tried so hard. Jerry Lawler was advertised to be talking to the Bella Twins in the ring. This fucking thing, I can't wait. So after we came back from commercial, Bo Dallas met with Jack Swagger, who was in the training room, and he did his usual Bo leave thing, and Jack Swagger had to sit there looking like he was in too much pain to go get him. US title contender match, Antonio Cesaro against Rob Van Dam with Sheamus on commentary.
This match was shit.
Get to the match in a sec. I must say, as much as I think Sheamus is just too hammy, unrelatable for an American audience, not indicative of any Irish person I know, and he dresses like a farmer from the famine, his banter with JBL here at times was incredible. Telling JBL that, commenting on JBL wearing a wig. He just had really, really good lines, and the match itself, Ken.
Shit. And what was the finish like? It was just so out of nowhere.
Yeah, they're both on the outside.
He was going up for a frog splash, RVD was. Cesaro rolled out of the ring. RVD... I thought the spot was he's going to dive on the floor. You know what I mean? That spot where you're on the top rope, you're going to do a splash into the ring, your opponent rolls out, so you dive onto the floor.
Sure.
But he just jumps down and sort of puts his arms out and say, oh, well. And Cesaro just gets in the ring, kicks him, and hits him with his finish, and badly.
Yeah.
It was just weird. And,
this Van Damme run is going to go down as forgettable at best.
I was thinking about this earlier on. When he came back last year, they were reacting to him at a stupid level. He was so fucking over, right?
That's right.
And he was feuding with Del Rio for the now defunct World Heavyweight Championship. And in hindsight, right, if you'd given that to him in, say, their first pay-per-view match, and he lost it back in their second, so he had a 1-month reign, right, before Del Rio lost it to Cena, you rubber stamp him as a star, so he still means something now. What's happened now is he's the same as Jericho, probably even lower, in fact, where
definitely.
he's just a prelim guy, like Flair was doing jobs to like Rico and that in 2002, 2003. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you have to give your legends some credibility. If they just lose all the time.
That's right. I agree with you.
And by the way, Cesaro is so dead as a fish here, and his music is just...
Because they don't know how ambulance sirens they have on it now. They don't know what they're doing with Cesaro. We had Sheamus chasing Cesaro out. Sheamus, and I alluded to the fact he was dressing like a farmer from the famine. He was wearing a paddy cap, he was wearing a black waist jacket, white shirt, and blue jeans, and pointy black shoes. But when he was chasing Cesaro away, they were going up the ramp, and Sheamus's shirt had come undone, so it was building up at the back, and he literally looked like a swan. I don't know if you saw this.
I fucking hate Sheamus.
Oh man, it was unreal. Your theory about RVD, it's sound. I still think even if they had done that, with what they've done since he came back the second time, post WrestleMania, it wouldn't have made a difference.
I mean, this run
They
has
killed him.
This run has been quite incredibly bad, hasn't it?
It has indeed. Paige versus Natalya in a rematch from last week.
Oh Jesus!
Natalya's still sporting her new gear. This was fine until the finish, which saw AJ win with what we thought was the retired Paige Turner.
Not AJ, Paige.
And Paige was...
the Paige Turner is just fucking horrendous.
Yeah, even Natalya, who obviously, is the best they have in the ring, most likely, wasn't able to make much out of this.
Do you still think Natalya is the best? Yeah.
You know what? I do. Going on the last 12 months, obviously AJ Lee, hasn't been around a lot of the last 12 months and certainly doesn't wrestle a lot when you really think about it.
But do you not think there's a lot to be said for Rosa Mendez?
Well, have you seen the ad for Total Divas?
No, why?
Full frontal Rosa Mendez.
Usually?
Yes.
That's grand anyway. Did you know that Rosa Mendez has never won a singles match on television in WWE?
Is that a fact?
That was something that came out this week, yeah.
Look.
She won one match by DQ and a tag. That's the only match she's ever won on television.
Everybody complains about the lack of enhancement talent on the male side, so there you go. She's flying the flag. God bless her.
Fly my flag.
But you. AJ came out and this distracted Paige, who then got attacked by babyface Natalya from behind, which led to nothing. AJ then got in the ring and called her little English crumpet, as she always does, and said that, Paige, you call us frenemies. Well, I think it's a lot further than that. You mean a lot more to me. And they did an awkward hug and kiss of the hand. This was Paige to AJ. So basically, Paige was... her bluff was being called by AJ, and she was facially selling this like, oh no, I'm being out-mind gamed here, which is what the announcers were harping on who is the better at mind games. In a segment straight out of the disgusting Kane and Undertaker feud from 4 years ago, we had a eulogy segment.
Can I just bury that Paige AJ thing deep beneath the earth? It was just the worst television I've ever seen. I just think it's the most just fuck-tarded, awful storytelling. Both of them have such unbelievable go-away heat with me. If I never see either of them again, it will be too soon.
Okay, I felt you meant that.
What?
I felt you meant that.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you've got a form to get it out. Having said that, I still think the very last moment of the Bellas, I would have that rate that higher as a fuck-off moment for me.
Okay,
and we'll get to that.
Talk about that.
So the eulogy...
Please, let's skip this eulogy.
Of
I'm
Dean
going to throw
Ambrose.
myself out the window.
I didn't think this was bad.
Oh, God.
I really didn't. I love it. Seth's brilliant. Seth really gets it.
Okay.
I think he's such a wrestling fan that he just gets it.
I need to have a speak about this, okay?
So it goes from let's not talk about it to give me the forum.
This is, again, it's like this backstage segments with Randy Orton or Kane or something. This is what I despise about modern pro wrestling, and it's such a disconnect. It's just in no way realistic. It is just a man who is not really an actor, who's a pro wrestler, who's good in the ring, who is, competent. He's not the worst on the mic by any means.
He's
but
actually really good.
He's just reading this garbage dialogue, and he's talking for 5 or 10 minutes, and I don't give a fuck about any of it. And I don't know anybody on earth who possibly could want to see a pro wrestling match because of this fucking awful television.
I think you're towing the Meltzer line again.
No! I was sitting there watching this long before I'd heard anything else, and I was just like, oh, it just drives me fucking bonkers. That it's just, and what the Meltzer line, the stuff he discussed today, it's bang to rights that you just can't send people out there to talk for 10 minutes about nothing. It's just a bad monologue. It's not entertaining. It's badly written shite, like.
I, for the most part, would agree in the sense that they do have people, sent out there to read a tremendous amount of, like, we'll see this in the Bella segment later. Of all the things on the show, this was the one thing that didn't kind of lose my attention.
Yeah, but okay, it's not that Seth was bad in the segment or anything. Okay, that's not it. It's just a complete 1,000,000,000% detached from me as a viewer. I don't believe any human being would act like this ever. It's just...
I believe a human being would act more like this than John Cena's character.
That's fair enough, but that's another argument. My point is, we can have a John Cena discussion later on if you want to.
No, I just mean it's the same, and if he is positioned as the main guy, but I feel that towards him, then I'm going to be a lot more sympathetic towards this.
Okay, see, but my point is not my point is not at the characters in this segment. It's the context of the show. They have 3 hours to fill, so they just have to. They have 20 writers in a room putting all this garbage together, and it's just. So it doesn't in any way make me want to see Seth Rollins against Dean Ambrose.
Was it the dialogue? Was it the idea of somebody hosting a eulogy, or was it both?
And it's just the dialogue. It was just garbage, like.
So it's both.
Yeah, it's just
now,
all.
Kane has done
bad
this before.
Let me. The other thing is, then out comes Roman Reigns as Dean Ambrose's, bestest buddy, and it's just like for the last 3 months, it's just been dropped. It's just such a disconnect. It's just bad television.
We're jumping forward a tiny bit here. Kane did this before. Would you find it more easy to digest Kane's dialogue in a situation like this because it's a little bit more of a creepy segment?
I distinctly remember when Paul Bearer had his last run in was it 2010?
Yeah,
them doing one of these. I think it may have even been one of those famous SmackDowns with the music in the background. You know the way you see that?
It was.
That's I had the exact same problem with. The only difference would be I can appreciate the awfulness of something like that in the same way as I can appreciate the awfulness of some of the stuff in the Bella segment. Whereas this was just like, I cannot tell you, every fibre of my being wanted to fast forward this, and it's because you care about Seth. That's what I'm concluding from this. Okay.
Because Kane is easy to kind of look at and be like, it's Kane. But you think Seth's higher. You think Seth's worth more than this.
But
he's yet untainted.
We're going to talk about Superbrawl later, right? And it's like, it's just the context the entire show is presented in.
Yeah, well, I don't think Superbrawl was any great shakes in that regard as well. At times.
The best WCW show of all time, factually.
Yeah, you were saying match rating wise. We'll talk about that right. We'll make sure to mention that before the show because I think that's very interesting. So as Kenny said, there's a very, very long promo by Seth just basically saying that, concluding with the idea that he invented the Shield so he can destroy it, which he did, and also that he guaranteed people would be very unlikely they would see Dean again. Then he started cackling.
Oh God!
That was a very bad cackle. I will say.
Oh
that.
Jesus!
Kane was obviously out there with him. Then Roman's music hit.
Just Kane. Could Kane just go away forever, please?
I've been asking for this for so long that now I don't care anymore.
I can handle Kane when he's wearing the mask and he's Michael Myers from Halloween. But when he just starts wearing, I don't ever see his face again. No offense, Glenn.
Poor Glenn. So we had Roman Reigns coming out to defend the honor of Dean Ambrose. As Ken said, this is very questionable, considering that he hadn't ever come to Dean's aid. But then again, he was just too busy with Randy. And you know the way it is, Ken. If you're locked in with a superstar, you don't watch the TV unless the guy you're feuding with's on it.
Listen, I just was thinking when I was watching this, how easy would it have been, right? How many shitty backstage segments with no purpose do we see, right?
Oh.
So we've had a backstage segment 3 months ago where
we did this on show 1.
Did we? Yeah. Just have Dean say, "Look, I'm going to go. I'll look after Seth. You focus on business for Randy because it's personal with me and him." And you know what I mean? Just excuse it. Just get them into the picture. It's just basic storytelling, and it's just I just cannot care about these characters.
Roman got the upper hand and used some of the props to attack Seth, and he had Seth and Rollins backtracking up the ramp as he stood there doing his whole thing. We had Stardust and Goldust backstage. They beat the Usos last week on Raw, so this week it was announced that they were going to have a title opportunity. Mm-hmm. When we came back from commercial, that's what we had. It was a kind of a nothing match for a while. It was mostly Cody in the ring. Until it kind of went to the outside. They did some flippy doos. Goldust did a flip. Cody did a flip that wasn't captured. Did you notice that one half of Cody's head was kind of shaved by mistake? There's like a lump missing out of his hair.
I did not.
It was either a gold paint or a lump missing out of his hair, and I'm pretty convinced it was a lump missing out of his hair. I first noticed it in the interview backstage. It's like somebody kind of put a rib on him, yeah.
Okay.
When we came back from break, they were still battling on the outside, and we had an Usos countout. Goldust grabbed the microphone and then said he wanted an immediate rematch because you only get one shot at the titles. Before anything could happen, while the Usos were defending the fact that they would give them another opportunity, we had Gold.
I think they were trying to point out that one of the Usos' legs was done.
Right. Yeah. We had Goldust and Stardust attacking them and turning heel, which is very interesting.
You think it was heel turn, yeah?
Of course it was.
I thought it was very clear it was a heel turn, but we discussed the Observer show where they were kind of unsure about it, but I thought it was very clear.
I just think it was very obvious.
I'm glad they've gone heel because they were not doing anything with them as baby faces, and they weren't really connecting, I think.
Two things on them. They're now calling, instead of saying Goldust and Stardust, it's Gold and Stardust.
Why isn't it just Gold Star?
Well,
just give them a team name.
yeah, I'm sure that would be okay. And second thing here is, would I be right by saying that this is the only example? It's the only example I can think of where a team has done a turn when they've actually had more backstage segments than matches.
Probably, yeah.
It's fascinating. If that's the case, if not, please contact us and let us know. Backstage, we had Kane make a handicap match with
Neil, you didn't give out any contact details there. Send your letters to 218 SmackDown Boulevard.
Yeah, just post a comment on the YouTube video. That's how we do them now anyway. We don't do SoundCloud anymore. So, yeah, post a comment on the YouTube video. Or you can find us both on Facebook, I suppose. Yeah. Kane made a handicap match for himself and Rollins. This is where Rollins is just like, you can tell he's such a wrestling fan, where he'll bask in the opportunity of, even though you've seen this a million times happening, the heels being in a handicap match, he'll stand there as if he just can't believe what Kane's done and go, ha, yeah, a handicap match. Incredible. Again, if you had the opportunity to be a pro wrestler on national television and you thought that was your dialogue, you would jump at the opportunity to be that sneaky heel with another heel who went, oh, wait a minute.
Sounds absolutely wonderful.
There you go. Okay, here we go. The best thing on the show: Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar, and this was just unbelievable. It was unlike the last sit down interview they did, where it was both Brock and Cena and cutaways. This was just Cena and Paul Heyman and clips of the destruction, which was the SummerSlam main event. Brock Lesnar was pretty much just saying that Cena was embarrassed that Cena was going to invoke his rematch clause. Heyman said the only reason that the match finished when it did was because Brock showed mercy. Brock questioned Cena's morals and said, what did your dad have to tell you when he was sitting on your bed at night when you were a child to make you believe that you wouldn't run into somebody like me? And at the very end, after delivering the line, and usually when WWE stays on somebody's face for way too long and it cuts away so that last line will sink in, goddammit, Brock then just said, you know what? It almost brings a tear to my eye. It was... Ken, you didn't like the last one. What did you think of this one?
I enjoyed this. Very good.
Brock's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it was very good. It was edited very well, and it was just good. Enjoyed it.
Do you think it's... how much do you think it means to Brock that they allow him to curse a lot more than everybody else?
I don't think Brock Lesnar gives a shit. Just, honestly.
Oh, no. I guess what I'm saying is... would he have the impact he has if he wasn't allowed curse that much, or if they made sure that they didn't have those, if it was edited?
I'm very minded that it's not really the exact words you say, is the way you say them. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So I don't think it would have a huge impact.
I guess we mentioned Douglas earlier, Shane Douglas. A lot of people say he's an overrated promo. It's just because he was the trendsetter when it came to profanity.
There's something said for that, though, because he used so much of it, and it was like, you know, if you always remember, the intro to his promo was always, cut the fucking music!
You're absolutely right.
So,
it was way more, wasn't it?
It was his gimmick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
okay, so Seth Rollins versus Rob Van Dam was announced for main event. Dolph Ziggler... this is right. One thing at the end of that Brock segment, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you noticed this. This is one of those little things that I'll say to you and you roll your eyes. But at the end of that Brock segment, it did the backdrop for the match, the little animation they do for the match. So you know where it flashes up John Cena and then it's a picture of his face, and then it flashed up Lesnar, but it was a full body cutout of Lesnar with the belt around his waist in his MMA gear, which we didn't see actually on the night he won the title.
No, we haven't seen it at all.
So it's a backstage photograph, and right then and there, including Punk's 300 blah blah days title reign, 434. Right then and there, I was hit with this feeling I hadn't had in so long. And it took me about a minute to realise what that feeling was. The WWE title and the champion holding it looked really amazing. And it felt special.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I don't know if you saw it and you know what clip I'm talking about.
Listen, once we get 90 minutes into the show, I'm ready for it to be over. So.
Yeah, it was certain. And then Dolph Ziggler came out with the Intercontinental title the wrong way around, hanging off his arse. And I just thought, you know, the comparability between the two is incredible. Yeah. He came out for what was supposed to be a rematch against The Miz. Miz came out and said, one of the great things about being a Hollywood star is you have stunt doubles. So he brought out, what do they call him? Damien Mizdow. Sandow hadn't been on the show in a few weeks, and I hadn't really missed him.
Can I just say, I bet most people didn't notice this, but he actually was mimicking The Miz's moves and spots. Right down to Mizzo's specific missed clothesline, which Sandow did, which I thought clearly the guy is giving everything to whatever role he is given, which is something you have to admire.
And that's true. You can't fault him for that.
And he lost here.
And Miz and Ziggler's feud must continue. Here we go. Here's something they did in the States we didn't see, Ken. They made an announcement for the network that they're debuting Jeff Hardy's documentary. Interesting. But then again, if they were going to do it for Punk, there's nothing to read into this. Just sticking on that topic for a second, something I didn't mention in the news that I had prepared earlier, but I didn't have the right sheet in front of me. It's come out this week that Kurt Angle basically was completely given the cold shoulder by WWE.
Yeah, apparently what he did was he contacted Triple H, who said, I think he basically blew him off. I think he tried to do it in a nice way, but Kurt went over Tripp's head, spoke to Vince. Vince basically said, Hunter deals with talent relations now, and Hunter was not impressed that Kurt had gone over his head, and so now he's very much on the outs. And there's no way TNA are giving him a deal now. So
really?
Well, no, it's just that it's been reported that they're not signing anyone to big deals at the moment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that it could be a really sad, undignified end to his career.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll get dates in New Japan, but it just feels like he's going to drift into the wilderness, you know. I would love to see him back in WWE for one more run, but it doesn't seem likely.
I completely agree. Sad. Nikki Bella and Brie Bella in the ring with Jerry Lawler. Jerry invited Nikki out. She dragged her chair away. There was 2 chairs set up in the ring. Then Brie came out. Nikki's first line of dialogue was which actually felt very off the cuff to me, was, could you not at least get your own entrance music? Brie responded by saying, you can have the stupid music if you want. Brie basically cut a promo saying how much she loves her family and her husband, but no matter what, her and Nikki are twins, if you already didn't know. That there was ultrasound pictures that her mother got when pregnant with the two of them, holding hands in the womb. This was all fine and well. Then her delivery was fine. Then Nikki got on the mic.
Hang on.
Fine. It was Brie's delivery was fine.
I actually laughed out loud at her. I thought it was awful.
That's fair enough. Okay, so it's like, maybe you'll agree with me, just in terms of the levels it goes up. You might use the same analogy, but the levels it goes up. Nikki got on the mic, and she was better.
Yeah. Nikki reminds me of someone. Did you ever watch Mallrats?
I have seen it.
Okay, so you obviously know who Jason Lee is, yeah?
Yes.
The actor. He's My Name is Earl.
Okay, there we go.
I always specifically remember in Mallrats, because I think he said this himself on the commentary, that was his first film. He was a famous skater, like Tony Hawk.
Oh.
Yeah, and he'd gotten a lot of endorsements and stuff, and that somehow segued into a film career. But anyway, he talks about how in his first film, in his first role in Mallrats, every single line is like over-enunciated and overemphasized and overacted, and there's no subtlety to any of his performance. Now, it's like you don't necessarily look at him and the whole time think he's a bad actor, but it's everything is smacking you in the face that he says. It's the exact same as Nikki here.
Yeah, she was going hellbound for leather. She didn't mess up any of her words, and judging by her demeanor on Total Divas, some of these words were pretty big for her. That's just my opinion. She was very, very good. And then, like as Ken said, actually,
I have a question for you.
Go on.
What the fuck was Brie Bella wearing?
What was she wearing?
She had a Bremo t-shirt and then the short leather skirt, which would have been okay in itself. She insisted on wearing her t-shirt, but she was then wearing like a Mick Foley red flannel shirt around her waist.
Yeah. No, some of Nikki's lines are great, talking about how she's always viewed as a materialistic one, while Brie is viewed as the earthy, compassionate one. She said that Brie always tries to do well with her goody earthy stuff, and
I actually thought there was some really good dialogue.
There was some really, really, really good dialogue, in fact, from Nikki, until the point where her delivery stopped being as on the money and as intense as Ken was saying. And the big punchline, the second time on the show that the big end line had just failed terribly, she said, in the most typical Bella, no human on the planet would ever say it this way, I wish you had died in the womb. It would. Oh, that's what I laughed at.
You know, I couldn't help but remember when she said this line was in the build-up to WrestleMania 17. I will never forgive your mother for giving birth to you.
Oh, Vince.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I know, it's brilliant.
That is incredible. But yeah,
I thought the brawl here was quite good, actually.
They brawled afterwards. Jerry kept trying to break it up. Nikki got great heat on Jerry, who's 20 times more over than Brie will ever be still in 2014.
Brie is like coming on almost as a heel.
You know, when she came back and had that in-ring at the pay-per-view with Stephanie 2 months ago, it's all been downhill from there, unfortunately. Actually, when she got arrested, she got good sympathy, which you don't usually hear the crowd give, but it's gone. Plummeted.
She can't act at all.
Yeah, she's been outdone by Nikki, and they always trusted Brie with dialogue more. So this is bad sign for her. They had a brawl afterwards, but yeah, no, I just think if Nikki had nailed that last line, then it could have saved the segment. But it was two people doing a segment who are not prepared yet to be given that spotlight, in my opinion. Well, it's not going to be the end of it, though. We're going to get at least a match out of it. Supposedly it was the Total Divas producers that asked for this storyline.
Yeah, I can imagine. Although I don't know how. I can't see the wrestling angles they're doing playing into the show, because the show, as unrealistic as it is, isn't that over the top. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be a weird one. And also, you'd have to think the WWE were always thinking about doing it at some stage.
Yeah, and if you look as well, like on Twitter, Nikki is still a total babyface, and they were together for some Total Diva stuff. I can't remember where they were, but they were away, and they share a Twitter account, and it's very strange. It's like they would previously post pictures together on Twitter. They haven't done that, but it's very apparent they're together. It's just if they're doing this show for the reality show, then they really need to be, working on Twitter. And actually, that's something that I was thinking as well. This is something else that really strongly bothers me about when I was watching the Seth Rollins promo. It's the business is so exposed now, where I will constantly go onto one of the wrestling news sites or even the Observer site, and you see like a link to Seth Rollins talks about his character and stuff, and it's so in your face that like I just think this, when you see stuff like the eulogy thing earlier on, not to pick on it, it comes across even faker again, because it's been very exposed for a while, but now it feels like in the last 2 or 3 years, with Twitter as well.
They've taken the reins off people to.
Yeah, or even stuff like when they do the anti-cancer advertisements every October, and you have all the heels kind of with the baby face. It's just.
Yeah, it would take people talk about the quality of the product. I think in terms of production and smoothness and making the good isn't as good as it once was, but they're very very good at making sure there's not the shits anymore. But it would take a very, very, very good. They allowed the talent to have such freedom outside now, which they haven't had before in terms of the way they speak with the media and the way they speak to fans. Mm-hmm. That would actually take in my opinion, pretty creative minds to deliver 2 to 3 hours straight that you can suspend your disbelief the way it is these days, especially when people like me and you and people who listen to the podcast spend half our time looking at what's happening behind the scenes rather than what's happening on our TVs. Okay, Roman Reigns against Kane and Seth Rollins in a handicap match. This ended with a DQ after Seth attacked Reigns with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Then there was a beatdown as usual. Kane revealed the dreaded cinder blocks that were there again. Roman Reigns was about to be put through by a curb stomp when he battled out of Kane's grasp. He then got a block itself and tried to throw it at Seth, who was up against the ring post. They used a real cement block this time. It smashed against the ring post, and a bit went and flew directly at Jerry Lawler's head.
You see, I'm sure it was cement, but it
was somewhat gimmicked.
It clearly was.
But it looked
like this.
Well, I don't know. Like, supposedly, you could hear Michael was very concerned about Jerry. I think.
Yeah, I think he was kind of. Anyway.
He was working it.
Yeah.
Jerry didn't speak for about a minute as well, which made me think. So Reigns punched out Kane and stood tall in the ring as Rollins was on the ramp shouting the odds back. The announcers then did a very awkward plug for the network that really I don't know if you saw SmackDown, but JBL tried to plug and it just fell flat on its ass. So they're just, it's comedy down now. Backstage, Bray Wyatt spoke about John Cena not being himself anymore. He had the two lads in the background. This was previously announced in the show as the main event. So what do you think of this Bray promo, Ken? People are loving hearing your opinions on him.
It just goes over my head. There's nothing to me.
This
I actually
one I
kind of
couldn't
thought at
actually get one.
first there was a danger putting Bray Wyatt in the ring with Cena. I just thought you need Cena in there with a star this week. Like I thought maybe an Orton or something. I thought there was a danger having him in there with a guy like Wyatt, who's kind of a mid-card prelim act at this point. But the way they booked it was kind of saved it.
And the way they booked it, we'll get to it in a minute, also makes me think that they really it's over for Bray, in my opinion. We had, as we said, Los Matadores and Slater Gator. Los Matadores winning on their first match back. Slater Gator just there as comic relief. Bo Dallas against Kofi Kingston. This was Bo winning, and then Jack Swagger coming out to avenge Bo's comments from earlier. The crowd actually booed Swagger after he attacked Bo. So Bo bet Kingston. What's notable here is that neither Xavier Woods or Big E were accompanying Kingston. So that is one of those official things that in a few years' time you'll forget about. But yes, at one stage there was a stable formed on Raw, and Xavier Woods was in a white suit, and nobody recognised who he was. Was that the first week of our show?
I think it was. Yeah.
Perfect, brilliant. Well, then we might very well not forget it. Okay, so then we went on to the main event, and this was very interesting, Ken. Why don't you bring us through the main event yourself there?
It was supposed to be Cena and Wyatt, and they kind of had a match where Cena just destroyed Wyatt, just suplexing him, clotheslines, bad punches, the usual John Cena stuff.
He was using a lot of Brock's moves, I think was the story here as well.
Yeah, he used his knee, used his German suplex. Eventually the Harpers ran in for the DQ. I said Harpers.
You did indeed.
Okay. Slewpicks. So Henry and Big Show came down. I find it odd that they're both so bald these days. They had a brick brawl, and I know everybody's made the joke, but I was waiting for Teddy Long to come out and make it a 6-man tag. But so they did make it a 6-man tag, and Cena got the win when he submitted Luke Harper. Then after the match, he AA'd all the Harpers. And I mean, they really, really, really felt like a prelim act at this point. And I was thinking to myself, maybe they're going to turn them babyface. I think the best thing for them maybe to go babyface and have, if that New Nation stable happens, maybe have a 6-man feud there, because I think they were much more over as a unit. And I think that there's maybe more for them where Harper can do most of the work, which won't expose Wyatt and Rowan so much. And maybe in Wyatt can get better in that time, but it felt like they blew them off. Yeah.
Final note on Raw: would you have had Cena sell the match more, and would you have had him wrestle?
I don't have any problem. Well, see, I don't know why you can't just do this the week before Night of Champions to show him back to full health, and you know what I mean? Because you can't put him over this strong every week.
You know what? This is the perfect thing to do the night before, or the week before,
6 days before. Like you could have had him do anything tonight. Maybe had some heel come out and cut a promo on him saying he's done, and Cena kind of ends up hitting him with AA, beat him up or whatever, but then kind of sells it afterward. Like he's still in pain, and over the next 2 or 3 weeks, you see him getting better until 6 days before Night of Champions, he's 100% healthy. Okay,
right, let's move on to our podcast roundup. We'll also be giving our Podcast of the Week award, very prestigious award at this stage, 8 weeks in. So Piper had Duggan on for the second week in a row, but it wasn't done like in the same, the way they usually tape. Yeah. So this love affair is genuine. Piper's show, I need to see the figures for Piper's show. I still think it's beating Goldberg's though. Jericho had on Ace Frehley from Kiss.
By the way, did you know these podcasts? I read a big article by Josh Nation on Podcast One. Did you read this?
I missed it. I saw it advertised. Was it good?
Yes, but apparently it's kind of a partnership deal where there's like a profit sharing thing with all the wrestlers doing these. So that's probably one of the reasons Austin's so keen with his plugs. But that also means that they're directly responsible. However many downloads they get directly impacts how much money they make off it. So I'd be very interested to see Piper's numbers or Goldberg's numbers.
So it's all part of a collective, really, when it comes to the wrestlers.
But it's individual, if you know what I mean. So the ad revenue generated by Steve Austin's podcast directly affects how much money he earns from it. And it's I believe the split is 50-50 between the guy who runs Podcast One and, say, Austin. So I'd wonder if there's really that much money in it for guys like...
Sorry, I understand now.
The guys who've just gotten into the game like Goldberg or Piper, because I don't know who's listening to those shows.
No, I'd say it's very... But maybe the agreement is that they get tied down to a certain amount anyway, just in case, they get the first check and they fuck off. might look bad, so they might get tied down to something. Chris Jericho had Ace Frehley from Kiss on, which I haven't heard Ace Frehley do much press, especially in relation to Kiss, since he left the band 10 years ago.
I did not know Ace Frehley was no longer Kiss, Neil.
Yeah. Well, see, the guy, Kiss are back in makeup. They have been since 98 or 97. But
Gene Simmons working the Kane gimmick there.
Absolutely. But the thing is, the guy who plays Ace Frehley now is not Ace Frehley. The character, the makeup is still portrayed for Ace.
Oh wow! So
Ace
it's like
the drummer.
fake Razor Ramon, basically, is what you're telling me.
Not really, because see, Paul Stanley and Gene started the band.
I see.
You know what I mean? And the other two came in, and then they were serviced to requirements twice. They were the feckers. Paul and Gene are the very clever businessmen Jews who have made Kiss, Kiss condoms. Whatever.
Yeah, we're going down a very Malky McKay road here, Neil. Be careful.
We were talking about it last night on the football show, trying to keep that on a professional.
Oh.
Was not that I have any political views or racist views myself, but
of any sort.
It opens it up. Say it again.
Of any sort.
Of any sort.
No, you said political views of any sort. Anyway.
I certainly wouldn't mention them anyway.
So Jericho had a musical guest on who no one's interested in.
Well, I think it's the most interesting musical guest he's had on, and I will listen to it and report back next week on it. Okay.
Okay.
As a big Kiss fan, Austin had.
I'll be in the bathroom while you're reporting. Okay.
Austin had Foley Part 2,
which was fucking brilliant,
and Jim Ross. Now I didn't hear the Jim Ross one. Talk about both of them for us.
I thought the best part of this was Austin and Ross, I mean, without using his name directly, buried Vince deep beneath the earth.
No.
They were discussing, I can't remember what they were discussing, but it was the general conversation they have about how Vince, he doesn't want to be a wrestling promoter, so he won't allow time limits, he won't allow, draws, all that kind of thing. And but they were just both agreeing, and it's in the first 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes of the show, just agreeing about all the stupid things, about how they can't be wrestlers, about how about the general kind of. I think Ross actually used the line of he was saying, "We're not wrestling, we're the entertainment business," and they wouldn't use Vince's name by they wouldn't use it by name. He just referred to people in positions of power, but. Austin was Ross was going on his usual kind of his kind of rant, that he does in the first half hour of his show every single week.
Yes.
But Austin was just laughing along and clearly agreeing, because Austin's very political. He doesn't often say much.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I fucking thoroughly enjoyed this as somebody who's not enamored of the current product at all.
Yeah, just there's been so much JR and Austin back and forth since they both got their respective shows on Podcast One, that when I saw his name flash up today, I literally was kind of like, really?
No, I enjoyed it.
So I'm really exciting. Tell me about the Foley interview. I heard the Foley one, and I thought it was just as good as the first.
One other note on Ross was one of the questions. They addressed a lot of questions, but he was asked what he knew about Montreal. I don't know if this was known. He didn't know going out. He was told DQ on the way out, and they weren't even told who was winning. They were just told DQ finish.
I knew that.
And you knew that, okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and they had another 8-10 minutes on the air, and Kevin Dunn just came in his ear and said, "Going off the air in 10, 9, and."
Yes, I'd actually heard that it told that way. So I was probably from Ross. I'd heard it on a different show.
So the Foley show was fantastic. There's not much to say in terms of revelations, but it's just a podcast that needs to be listened to because they're just such good buds and they're having such a fucking laugh. And
I've never heard Mick so free and easy. We said this last week.
The last half hour when Austin they wrap it up and then Austin says he's calling an audible, and they just start telling stories. Like they tell a story about Owen and Foley having the match with the bag of popcorn.
Worst match of all time, supposedly.
You what?
The worst match of all time.
Yeah, with Austin shitting himself in the corner, and the one where Foley comes out and he starts cutting a promo about The Rock is always talking about men's asses and makes a cocksucking joke, and Rock then starts to mimic sucking a dick, but then as he does it, the dick gets progressively bigger till it's like a fucking giant python that he's holding, and then he wipes his mouth clean as though he's wiping the cheese off his face. I can't even say it. And Austin and Foley are telling these stories, and they're just hacking themselves, and it's like. I always say that the best podcasts should leave you feeling almost like you kind of know the dudes doing it.
Sure.
And that's why when I when I met Brian Alvarez, when he happened to be sitting next to me at WrestleMania 26, what are the odds? But
we've done the odds.
Yeah, it was the most
2 to 68,000 or something.
Yes, 1 in 68,000.
1 in 68,000.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that we were sitting next to each other.
You're right.
So yeah, and I always remember him showing me texts from his granny, and like, oh, granny, he would say, "Oh, granny just sent me this," because I knew who granny was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just kind of general banter like that all night. And it was just like, it was very odd, and I just felt like I knew this guy, even though I didn't. And
Sure.
the point being that I really felt like I was getting a window into these two guys' lives. You know what I mean? Like, this is the conversation they would
Especially
have.
Foley.
They were, you know, it just was really good fun.
Austin puts himself out there enough at the start of his podcast. Like, he has a forum. Like, but with Foley really got it, because Foley is always on shows talking about the tour.
Yeah.
Or when he was doing his ambassador stuff a few years ago. So yeah, no, this was really it. Like, Foley was, yeah, no, it was like they were laughing so much that they weren't actually even finishing stories. Really, it was
very funny. Yeah,
it was great to listen to. So the Wrestling Observer guys, you spoke last week about a podcast that Austin and Dave Meltzer recorded for 3 hours. It got lost. Austin didn't hit the record button after pausing 3 minutes in. So Austin did Dave's show. They always do that anyway. But you know, besides the hilarity of talking about losing the show that Austin recorded, how did you find Austin's appearance on Observer? It was 90 minutes long. But I felt, you know, I didn't feel there was anything new from it. Am I forgetting?
I don't remember any revelations, but I still thought it was a really enjoyable listen, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
I don't, you know, it's just, for me, when you hear those guys, they're almost like on the Ross Austin thing, where we hear it, you know, probably once every 3 or 4 months now, but they always have an interesting conversation. And I think as the months go by, Austin is now watching the current wrestling product, because you know he wasn't. I remember at one point he made a reference to Dolph Ziggler getting a push, and this was after Ziggler had long since been buried. He basically had no idea what was going on. Now that he is watching what's happening, I find that his breakdowns are very interesting, and him even more so than Jim Ross, I feel, really similarly looks at the business to me. So when I hear his breakdowns and the stuff he likes and doesn't like, it coincides with what I feel like. He's talking about, he's watching a lot of like late 80s, early 90s WCW, which is exactly what I'm watching as well. And
just wants to watch himself before he got croaked.
He's actually, yeah.
So let the record show, ladies and gentlemen, that Ken's brethren in terms of philosophy on wrestling is the premier wrestling journalist of the last 30 years, Dave Meltzer, and the biggest star in a single business year, 1998, Steve Austin. Just want to clarify that, Ken.
Yeah.
So what would you give your podcast of the week as?
Oh, the Foley Austin.
Is that right? Okay, I would completely go with that too. So anybody who hasn't had a chance to listen to the first, now you can go and listen to them as a tandem, and they're absolutely fantastic. JR's show, he had Sean Grande from the Boston Celtics. Did you not listen to it? I was getting my Continental on the way here, and I felt that I had to urinate. I stopped off in a local Sonic, and my urine, though, was 2 hours prior, since my espresso smelled exactly like my Nespresso. And that's just my opinion. I'm just giving it to you the way I see it. But let me just say that one more time. My urine smelled exactly like the espresso I had 2 hours prior.
Do you know what the most fascinating thing is, though? When he's being interviewed, he's a good interview. But he just... his own podcast can be, at oftentimes, incredibly insufferable.
I know, yeah.
It's remarkable.
It is remarkable. Okay, speaking of remarkable, Ken, you've been talking a lot about why... you've been talking a lot about listening or watching WCW.
Yeah.
You've been watching a lot of late 80s up to the early 90s.
88 to kind of the middle of 93 now.
So basically, you've been catching up in the WCW that was very hard for us to see.
Yeah, the stuff that was the big appeal for me, was all the stuff that I never got to see, because I can go back. I already have all the DVD sets of the WWF stuff, but more than that, it's like, I specifically remember one of these WCW shows recently watching. Two guys came out called The Creatures, dressed like as lizards, kind of thing. I was like, who in the fuck are these guys? And I found out that these were the two guys who were originally going to be the Hunchbacks.
The Hunchbacks, that's right, yes.
Or I remember watching a WCW tag team tournament where they had teams from all over the world, and one of the teams was like, two of the different teams had the different members of the Public Enemy. One of them was pretending to be like South African, one was pretending to be Australian. And anyway, and then I go back and read the Observer about the show as well, and it's fascinating, because it's more the undercard stuff that you really had no idea about. You know what I mean? Because there's not much undercard stuff in the WWF that I wouldn't have been familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. So my setup for that was, why did you pick this show?
To review?
Yeah.
Because I knew I was coming up on the horizon, and I also knew that, I picked the Great American Bash 1991 before for us, which was notoriously their worst show they ever did, and I thought this is, match quality rating wise is considered the best show, certainly by the Wrestling Observer anyway, the WCW rather ever did.
Oh, that's incredible. Now, I would say this as just a slight overview. There are a few shows from '96 that had maybe like 3 cruiserweight matches and like, a fairly good DDP match on there and stuff like that, 96, 97, that maybe overall I maybe preferred. I also think Great American Bash 89 is a brilliant show. But I was really glad you picked the show. And just to give people context, this is February 22nd. 1993. So in the WWF, we had just had Flair in this Loser Leave Town match 3 weeks earlier against Mr. Perfect. We had Shawn Michaels coming forward with the Intercontinental Championship. Bret Hart on top had just gone against Razor at the Royal Rumble. And the winner of Royal Rumble 93 was Yokozuna. So that's kind of where we're sitting at in the WWF world.
Yep. Okay, so the show was the 21st of February 1993.
I said 22nd, excuse me.
Say again?
I said the 22nd, excuse me.
From the Asheville Civic Center in Asheville, North Carolina. Just so you know, business-wise, this did between an 0.4 and 0.5 buy on pay-per-view, which would have been the third worst that they had ever done at the time, which sounds bad, but in the 92, 93, 94, you'll find these worst records are broken constantly, both in WWF and WCW, because pay-per-view is very special in the 80s, and as both companies started just making more and more pay-per-views, the concept just kind of died a bit. And there used to be a thing, like, if you put something on pay-per-view, it was a big deal, but that was kind of going away. But they still made a profit of about $850,000 on this show. So we had a cold open to shots of Sting getting whipped with a strap, then choked with it. Then we saw a Vader and Harley Race promo. Vader says this isn't business, it's personal. And the narrator says Sting is going to conquer the White Castle of Fear.
Yeah. Now, the White Castle of Fear is what they dub the main event, which is a strap match. Was the White Castle of Fear one of those mini-movies they did?
Yeah, so you didn't see the whole thing, did you not? So they showed clips of it during the show.
Yeah, I presume that was it.
Yeah, no, it's like 6 minutes long.
I've never seen the full thing.
Do I have it recapped? I think I have it recapped somewhere along the line.
Okay, you fire away. I'll just give my testimony on the matches. You fire away.
I do have it.
When I saw these little cut-ins throughout the show, I was like, this is obviously... Yeah, I knew that they've done. Yeah. They did a few of these with
this
Sting.
Was very expensive as well. It cost like $300,000, which is a lot of money in 1993.
Well, Sting's outfit was fantastic. If you want to talk about that.
Okay, so Max Payne played the national anthem on the guitar. This was
a heel.
Go on to be Man Mountain Rock.
A heel though.
Yeah, he was a heel, but he wasn't a very strong one because he didn't get booed very loudly.
Yeah,
he did it. By the way, when I say played the anthem, it was on an electric guitar. So
before you say that, the show opened with Bischoff and Hyatt and Johnny B. Bad.
I had that written down as afterward.
No.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because this is very musically orientated review for me. First off, Missy Hyatt, the last time I had seen her was Great American Bash 91.
When she gets stolen.
When she gets stolen away. And she'd actually dyed her hair black, and I would have a propensity for brunettes anyway. But at this age in 1993, she had her a boob job that, like, by 90s standards was terrible. She looked...
Your 90s boob jobs generally great?
No, even by 90s standards.
As when you say terrible, though, what do you mean? They look awfully fake or something?
They just look ridiculous. They don't look like breasts. They look very extremely low on her chest. Like, if you've ever seen her since, you'll know what I mean. But she was always admired as a very pretty woman.
Yeah, I never thought she was very attractive.
Here more so than ever, though. Then they brought out Johnny B. Bad. Now, I was tidying my room. I had this on the background. Knew we had to review it. And I started thinking about Johnny B. Bad's music, right? And I was just listening to the lyrics going, this is the worst fucking song. It's like, you're going to hit you in the chin. He looks just like Little Richard.
I actually have written that down.
Yeah, it's like, so what happens, he comes out and he starts doing a little rhyme, He's acting as flamboyant as, like, I've ever seen any wrestler act. Uh-huh. And he went to the NWA title and he mispronounced it. And I think he said tridle. But his poem was obviously a rhyming scheme, so I was like, oh, that's fucking hilarious. So I went back I don't know if you have this. When I watch Network on my laptop, it's very hard to actually get to go back and forward to points.
I could never watch the Network on my laptop.
Okay, it's near impossible. So what happened? What was the closest I could get it?
The start of the show.
Started his fucking song again.
Okay.
I'm sitting there listening to the fucking lyrics of Johnny. Song again after paying so much attention to them for no apparent reason the first time. It killed me dead. But this panel, it just kept going back to, and what I have lots trifecta.
Of notes here. One thing though, you mentioned the music, right? I don't know if I've mentioned this anywhere in my notes here, which I have pages of notes. They had hired somebody in late 1992 to record all these new theme tunes because they never really had in-house music.
That's right.
And it was all done by the one guy, and he had written very specific lyrics for each guy.
Oh, yeah.
So if you remember, Justin Rhodes comes out to a song and it starts with, they called him natural.
Yep.
And Steamboat has lyrics about how he's a family man and he loves his wife and kids and shit.
Yeah.
But it's just so
Sting has the very famous, it actually got re-recorded for like the 96 Black-haired Sting. It sounded a lot better, but this was the first version of Man Called Sting.
Yeah.
So,
as you said, Missy and Bischoff opened the show to explain that the US title match, which was Ron Simmons versus Dustin Rhodes, but Simmons is out with a shoulder injury. So, they explain, Max Payne and his team of negotiators.
That's right.
Which happens to Motley Crue, have met with WCW and he will wrestle Rhodes instead. Missy says she's got a big interview coming later. Johnny B. Bad comes out. As you stated, his music does stipulate he looks just like Little Richard. So if you didn't know, that was his gimmick. Bischoff sent it down to Schiavone and Ventura. This was just after Jim Ross had left. What had happened was before Bill Watts went, he was kind of his power was diluted. And so Bischoff had just been promoted to executive producer, which made him Ross's superior, where previously he'd been working directly for Ross.
Yeah.
So he was taking that role directly from Ross, and it's noted in the Observer at the time that Ross had been abusing his power and treating people poorly in his role as one of the executive producers, which, you know, Jim Ross is almost kind of considered a saint of sorts because how badly Vince has treated him at times. But
and because he's
very hard to get on.
He was really, really good at his job.
Yeah.
But JR seems to have a pretty much non-existent sense of humor. So he's very much, I think he prides himself on being a straight shooter, if you will. Yeah. So I can imagine if you had to work for the man and he's in a bad mood.
Exactly, yeah. So they at the time they told him that they were taking him off announcing, and guess what his new job was, Neil?
Talent relations?
No. He was going to move to telesales, and he was going to ring around advertisers to get them to buy ad time on WCW syndicated TV shows.
Ooh.
In 1992, when syndication was dying. Can you imagine that?
Did he have
to
approach Vince then?
Yeah, he approached Vince then himself.
Oh, so Vince never wanted JR.
No, he approached Vince, I think, over the next coming... Yeah, because this is only, 6 weeks before WrestleMania.
Yeah, exactly.
So they agreed. They agreed a deal where he would walk away from the money in his contract, which is big because Watts assigned it to him, in exchange for an immediate release, which allowed him to debut at WrestleMania 9. So that's where we were at the time, just so you know, politically.
Yep.
So the first match is Buff Bagwell, Marcus Alexander Bagwell, Neil shakes his head, and Eric Watts versus Steve Austin and Brian Pillman, who are now wearing matching trunks, but they're not the Hollywood Blondes just yet.
Yeah, I noticed that. They weren't referred to once as the Blondes.
Nope.
Eric Watts is obviously a hangover from, as Ken just mentioned, when Bill had power. You know, the first time I ever saw Eric Watts was like in 2002 TNA. That was the first time I'd ever actually
I'd forgotten. He was in WWF briefly as well, wasn't he? In Techno Team 2000?
Was he in Techno Team 2000?
I thought he was, maybe.
Is it Tenko Team 2000 or Techno Team 2000?
I always thought it was Techno Team 2000.
I think it's Tenko Team 2000.
Let's Google that bad boy right now. So, this was very much...
Can I just say one last thing about Eric Watts? And then I'm going to let you run with it. He looked like a younger, skinnier, taller, uglier Mike Rotundo. Like, literally,
I could see that, yeah.
Of him.
I could see that.
Is it Tenko or Techno?
It is Techno, and it was composed of Travis and Troy. Travis was a chap named Chad Fortune, and who else did he work as? That's literally the only name he ever worked under, and it was Eric Watts.
Amazing.
So yeah, they were in the WWF very, very briefly.
Okay.
So anyway, where were we? So yeah, it's very much a heel crowd here. they're cheering Austin from the get-go. Ventura calls Bagwell a rookie and Austin a veteran, which I found funny because Austin debuted in September of 1989 and Bagwell in January of 1990. So there's 3 months of the difference here. At this point, the Eric Watts push was just out of control. He just wasn't up to the level they were pushing him. And indeed, there's a spot very early on where he tries an arm drag and he goes down long before... No, Austin is arm dragging him. And Austin goes down before Watts takes the bump. And you know it's Watts' fault.
He has a pretty badass transition where he's holding Pillman's leg. And he transitions it into an STF.
It's awful.
Oh, no, it's brilliant.
Oh, okay.
Everything else Eric Watts did, though, was dubious.
I do remember a promo at the Clash of Champions just before this where his eyes are like darting left and right really nervously. And he stumbles over his words badly. Bagwell tags Watts in. The people boo like crazy later on in the match. Ventura on commentary says, "Why do they keep booing Eric Watts?" And Tony says, "Is it boo or are they saying woo?"
Oh my God, Shivani.
Ventura goes, "Maybe you should listen once in a while. They're booing." And Tony kind of goes, "Oh yes, it does appear they're booing." But it's just like, I know he's got a cover for the baby face.
I was saying boo Earns.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's just completely infeasible. So it's a decent match here. I gave it 3 stars. And the finish is Austin hitting Watts with an elbow and Pillman gets the cover. I have gone to the trouble of finding out these star ratings here as well.
Okay, I gave it 2 stars.
2 stars, okay. Dave gave it 3 as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe it's 3 stars in 1993, but
exactly,
this killed me dead.
You see, I when I'm watching these shows, and I'm like ensconced in this world now. So you know what I mean?
That's fair. You probably have it's more relative to what you're watching.
Yeah,
that's okay.
But I think it's one of those things when you watch wrestling like this, because it's so much more simplistic. You're able then, once you've watched enough of it, to grade it on that curve because you're not looking for the high spots. You know.
Exactly. So you were talking about the turnover in contracts and how Ross got in and out so quickly. Flair is the same.
Yeah.
Flair's back here. This is where they've him and Missy backstage, isn't it? He arrives in his limo.
Just about, we're coming there. So first they show a clip of the White Castle Fear mini movie. Video is in a studio and goes, "Stinger, we have a date with Destiny." So we see Singh in a helicopter flying over the Rocky Mountains, and he actually says, "What is this all about?" Which is a very good question. It's like, how did you end up in the helicopter, Sting?
He was like wearing like a leather blue trouser suit combo.
We'll come to what he's wearing later on. We'll see him a bit more. But this was a copy of the Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal mini movie, which they did
Jake Robertson.
Yeah, for Halloween Havoc 92. The reason they copied it was because that was actually, believe it or not, very successful in pay-per-view. And they attributed that to the mini movie, which is probably all you could attribute it to at that stage.
Jake was... Have you seen that one?
Yes.
Jake's phenomenal in it.
He's great, yeah.
Okay.
It's great. The whole thing's great. So Missy tries to interview Flair and gets sexually assaulted by security, adding, "I'm usually being kissed when this happens," as they drag her away.
Wow.
Flair gets out of the limo flanked by security. Next out is Benoit using the same music, actually, they were using in 1986.
Which is incredible.
Really strange.
I'm sure it was dubbed.
Do you think so?
Yeah, because...
But normally you could tell the dub music very...
I know. And this racked my brain. Now, Benoit... so obviously this was his first appearance. He hadn't... Now,
this was before he killed his wife and his family.
Stop. Just... We'll get there. We always do. This was before he had signed. This is like pretty much 2.5 years before he's with the company.
He did have a little run, though.
It's crazy. I forgot about it.
One thing about this is, so Scorpio comes out next, and
his music is incredible.
Okay, but you have to see the previous Clash of the Champions. There's a vignette of him like dancing in the streets with children. Have you seen it?
God, I've seen it. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
Yeah,
because I wasn't prepared. It just came on, and I just lost my shit. Like.
I saw it on. Do you remember Road Dogg and Josh Matthews had that internet show where they just like it was the worst shit ever?
Yeah,
I can't remember what it was called, but they showed it on that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he comes out dancing, and his music's like "To go, to go." It's just fantastic.
He's been blessed with some incredible music.
He really has.
By the way,
but his dancing is the same as it would be with the Funkettes. Yeah.
No, he was doing the Flash Funk dancing here.
Funkettes, I think it was.
Yeah, it was the Funkettes.
Yeah.
No, he was doing the exact same dancing as well. For me, like Scorpio, like obviously he had a good run in the 90s. He was very innovative. But this for me was around the time when he was pretty much at his peak.
Yeah.
His WWF
Before he was fat, really.
Yeah, like he had a really, really good match with Sabu in '95 in the ECW, I remember, and I was just kind of like, but for me, anything I've seen from Japan or WCW of Scorpio was actually always been the best.
Okay. So, yeah, Scorpio was much more agile and fleet-footed than I ever remember him being.
There you go.
I just thought this was going to go to a time limit draw. I was kind of zoning out.
The time limit, by the way, is 15 minutes.
Was it 15? I thought it was 20. Okay.
Yeah.
Capetta on the mic was constantly referencing
it is
time.
20. Sorry,
It was 20. Yeah, it's 1959 the win.
I hate when they do that constantly reference to the time.
Yeah,
The
because it
WCW
gives
did that
away that it's because they didn't do it in any other match on the show.
And they specifically said about the NWA title that it was a 60-minute time limit, which they always used to.
Yeah. So I was kind of waiting out here, and they were having a really good match, but I was kind of like, we're not getting finished. And then Benoit went for a suplex, like a German. Scorpio dropped down, hooked Benoit's arms, and rolled forward and got a 3 count, which it was one of those, they were kind of a second behind, so the referee had to scramble to get 3 in here. They probably actually hit bang on 20.
I'd say so.
But Scorp got the win here. I thought this was a really, really good match. I went 3.5.
3/4.
3 what?
I went 3 3/4.
Meltzer went 3 3/4 as well. So.
Okay. Can I say something about this match? This is where we compliment each other, Ken. You didn't notice Jesse saying anything strange on commentary, did you?
This match, I have no notices.
When asked by Giovanni who he thinks will win, Jesse said, "I think Benoit should win as he has more of a killer instinct."
Oh Jesus!
My heart sank. It made my heart go bald.
Max Payne as an interview. I have no idea what he was talking about here, but
he was a heel. I must say, him playing guitar, and this was when he played.
Guitarist.
He's a very good guitar player, and slightly slimmer with natural hair, natural beard. He's so much more cooler than Man Mountain Rock.
Yeah, Man Mountain Rock was awful.
Oh, WWF guitar. What if he has a WWF guitar?
Yeah.
You know?
So Bill Irwin comes out, followed by the British Bulldog. Bulldog had just been fired for the growth hormone in the WWF, and man, could you tell, because he was just gigantic.
Oh, he's so big.
Biggest I've ever seen him, I think. He came out in the same gear as he wore at SummerSlam
Wembley,
1992.
yeah. Jesse made a reference to this. He goes, "You put this guy in Wembley and he'll sell it out."
Yes,
and I was like,
he did.
"Not if WCW put him in Wembley, they won't."
I actually have that down here as well. The generic music they had him come out to was just awful, by the way. It was just
nothing British.
Cesaro-esque.
Do you want to explain who Steve? What's his name?
Bill Irwin.
Do you want to explain who Bill Irwin is to people who don't know?
Bill Irwin. I have written nothing about him. The Goon.
The Goon.
Yes. Bill Irwin would go on to find greater fame. Well, I don't know if it's greater fame, but fame as the Goon in the WWF. But
right.
Yeah, we talk about finding Benoit hard to watch. I know you've mentioned that at times.
Sure.
I find it hard to watch guys like Davey, who are dead 100% because of the physique they have in matches like these. You know what I mean?
It was 100% because of the physique they had, Ken.
You what?
But it's not 100% because of the physique.
Well, it's
Davey was like, and you could tell by the promo he cut after this. I presume you're going to mention Davey was, and Brett. He's so into street drugs. Davey was a coke fiend.
Davey died on his death certificate of an enlarged heart. He was using human growth hormone.
Sure, but
do you know what I mean?
It's definitely a cocktail.
I'm sure the rest of the things put strain on his heart, but when you die of an enlarged heart and you're using a growth hormone which enlarges your heart.
No, I look, listen, I just wouldn't
same
say
thing as Eddie Guerrero died from.
I just wouldn't say that it's 100%.
No, but if you want to say 60%, it's still, do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
Okay.
He won with his power slam.
Oh, I have lots to say about this match.
Okay, go for it. Do you have any commentary notes? I'll start with that.
I'll go through this. Wild Bill. Oh, I have the notes on that. At one point, Irwin shoves Davey's face into the middle of the top rope, and Davey takes a back bump. It was just, they were so not on the same page here.
They were worlds apart.
Davey holds him up with a superplex. There's an Irish whip. Irwin comes off the buckle and they bog. And then Ventura asks why it's an Irish whip, and Tony says it was invented in a wrestling match in 1863 in Ireland.
Yep.
Ventura's like, oh wow, you've done your research, and it's like, hang on a second, dear Tony. Like, Tony just fabricating stuff here. It's fantastic.
It was, and he kind of, he alluded to the fact that, like, basically he does neither of them do research as well. He was clearly hinting that. He really pissed off Tony in the main event, which I can't wait to
Yeah, you can see he pissed him off all night. But so Davey catches a top rope crossbody and hits a power slam for the win. Half a star I gave this, and Meltzer went a quarter star. You?
Half a star sounds good to me. It's when it's in that territory where I don't know what a quarter of a star is and a half star is. I
agree.
I don't have that.
Okay, so we see more of the White Castle. So we see a cave and we go inside. We see Vader's Mastodon helmet gimmick. The promo's coming next, don't worry. And that's it. I found it really irritating that I had to go on YouTube to watch the entire White Castle thing. They didn't have it here. They showed clips of it all night, but never the entire thing.
That's more WWE's fault than WWE's, really, though.
Oh, no, I'm not blaming WCW.
Okay.
When I say they, I mean WCW. So this is fucking amazing, right?
You think they should have started the pay-per-view perhaps with this?
Yeah, or just show it just before the main event. Why are you showing me like 10-second clips?
Okay,
so there's a Bulldog promo up next. This is fantastic, right? First of all, I love the fact that he called it the WCW. And I meant to say last week, I meant to call it the SummerSlam all night during the show last week, but I never did. But that is Bret Hart's greatest gift to the world, the WCW and the SummerSlam. So Davey goes, I have come to the WCW to become the World Championship Heavyweight Champion of the world. So let's get down to it.
In bold capitals here.
He says, I'm looking forward to Vader's match with the Sting. I'm sorry, but the way he shouts, the Sting.
Bulldog in WCW, for those of you who don't know, he was like, Brett speaks very openly about Bulldog in 92 and how he was like out of his mind. In WCW in 1993, like, Bulldog would have these moments. Like, he was like, people think the Shockmaster thing is so funny because of Shockmaster. I think it's Davey Boy.
He found his fucking ass.
Davey Boy screaming and shouting the whole time before he even comes out. And Sting is about to say the very simple line, which is John, what's his name? Fred Otto's.
He will shock you because he is the Shockmaster.
Okay, but before he can even get that out, this might be why the whole thing got botched. Fred didn't know when to come out. Davey starts standing up going, I'll tell you who the special partner is. Special.
Yes, the special partner.
Like, Davey Boy found WCW as literally just a way to, that I think, is keep himself relevant and to finance his clearly heavy drug problem.
Did you notice that he said the Sting? Yeah,
I did. I have it all written down here. We might.
This is terrific. I love this. This was, to me, the show kind of, the next match was probably the best match tonight, but the show was never going to live up to this promo. So, excuse me. Okay, so we have a Paul Orndorff promo. Cactus Jack attacks him before the bell. I'd seen this match as a kid on a VHS when I was importing tapes. And I didn't think much of it then, but I really enjoyed it now. So Jack chases him to the ring with a shovel, which played off an angle 6 weeks earlier when Mick had turned babyface by walloping Vader and Harley and a couple others with a shovel, which, if you know that story, he really badly tagged a couple of guys and 3 of them ended up in the hospital. But
Foley and the shovel?
Yeah.
Oh.
And before he'd come out with the shovel, Harley told him, if you don't lay it in, I'm going to come back here and lay the shovel into you. So Orndorff takes over here. Orndorff's right arm is so bizarrely small. He had torn biceps, which he never healed, so it had kind of atrophied. But it's weird because apparently he was as functionally strong or stronger in the small arm, but it just looked so small.
Yeah, it always really put me off post WWF Orndorff when I saw that. The last show that we watched, you know, in the tag match he was in, you know, I noticed it there as well. I actually thought it came in later, but there you go.
Orndorff is in great shape for a 44-year-old. Right. Mick does a sunset flip from the middle rope to the concrete.
I've got this written here.
He did this a lot.
That's what I've written here too, Ken.
Stupid spot. I mean,
basically, whether it was a sunset flip or another one that he did was he would have somebody standing on the apron and he'd be his feet would be on the second turnbuckle and his arse would be on the top, and they would snap mare him. But either way, the bump was always he was literally standing on the second turnbuckle and he would somersault to concrete. Yeah. It was always exposed.
I find it very hard to watch this kind of stuff, knowing the condition he's in now. I mean, I would say he feels bumps like this every single morning when he wakes up. Then Orndorff suplexes him across a standing guardrail, and Mick just like impales the middle of his back on the guardrail. Do you remember this spot?
Yeah.
And he just completely flips over and lands right in his face on the other side. I was just watching it thinking, you know, when I was a kid, I used to think this was so cool. Do you know what I mean?
Me too.
And but it's just no faking this stuff, and I just found it hard to watch. So Foley takes a shot from his knee brace from Orndorff's knee brace to his head and bumps flat on his back again to the floor. Orndorff gets Capetta's chair to wear Jack's leg down with, and Capetta is very clearly, but I don't know if you noticed this, he's sitting at ringside on a mobile telephone, a joined mobile phone to his ear.
Gary Michael Capetta.
Yeah, when Orndorff takes his chair. I just thought it was so strange. Like, is he doing the Paul Heyman gimmick?
He's actually on the mobile phone.
Yeah, he's just to his ear, and he looks perturbed that Orndorff is interrupting his conversation. But
That's so weird.
So Orndorff signals he's going to hit his pile driver. Meanwhile, Jack gets the shovel and wallops him for the pin. I gave this 3 3/4. Really enjoyed this match. 4 stars according to Meltzer.
Whoa, that's huge. I'd give it 3.
Okay, that's a sign that I guess the violence doesn't wear so well. Rock and Roll Express versus the Heavenly Bodies. This was a Smoky Mountain wrestling match. There was like a co-promotion thing going on with them in WCW at this stage because they wanted to use Cornette. Cornette had been saying how he'd never work with WCW again already at this point in time, and here he was back.
So 2 things about this. The last WCW show we reviewed was or the one before. We did Bash at the Beach 94. We did Great American Bash 91, and the Rock and Roll Express. They were having their Blood Feud match. So they're obviously put back together here. So were they back together in WCW, or was it in Smoky Mountain? I'm pretty sure it's WCW.
WCW,
yeah. And then what they had was, what was very strange with this is they had the Heavenly Bodies. They had Stan Lane and Tom Pritchard, but they were accompanied by Bobby Eaton, who wasn't in Smoky Mountain but was still in WCW. And basically, ever since the Midnight Express broke up, it seemed they never knew what to do with Bobby Eaton. He tried a singles run, babyface heel. He's a third wheel here. And what's really strange is him and Stan Lane were the second version of the Midnight Express.
Yeah.
And they're with Cornette. So
it's always very strange, the mixing, matching. Like, I just remember seeing Stan Lane, like, you know.
So it's kind of like, it's like a heavenly, it's like the Heavenly Midnight Bodies, you know what I mean? But they don't acknowledge, Bobby Eaton at all there. Bobby Eaton floundered so much in WCW after, so like they gave him the gimmick where he was like an underservant to Regal in '95, and actually there were some amazing sketches. But
this was actually a pretty good match.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff of talking about why the Rock and Roll Express are really good, and like obviously this isn't their peak. You know, this is pretty much probably the end of them being able to have great matches. But I could kind of see in a perfect world why this formula got over so well.
Yeah, I mean they did a lot of kind of old school spots. I remember one spot where Lane and Morton are running the ropes, so they're running the opposite rope. So one is running like toward the hard cam away from it, and one is running right to left. And Morton slides out and chases after Jim Cornette, who jumps in the ring and bonks into Lane, who is still running the ropes, which I always kind of love, as though there's no way to stop yourself. You know what I mean?
They definitely had a lot of the Southern comedy at the start of the match.
So I enjoyed the match. I didn't have a great many notes. It was just a good wrestling match. The finish comes when Eaton goes for a splash off the top rope, but hits one of his own men. The Rock and Rolls get the pinfall. I thought it was a good match. I gave it 3 stars.
Yeah, I gave it 3 stars too.
This was another 4-star by Meltzer.
Yeah, you see, this is
where the aging, because even I'm watching this and I'm watching a lot of this stuff now. I just didn't see this as a 4-star match by any means.
Well, I go back and I watch Bash '89. I'm like 4 stars, 4.5 stars, 5 stars, and that's what he gave them in '89. It's interesting.
Next match we have Max Payne against Dustin Rhodes. The music on this show, I've written here. With Dustin coming into, they call him natural. It's just such bad music, man.
Awful.
They do a bit where like the UFC thing, where the ref talks into the mic to explain the rules to competitors. Payne is wearing black cycling shorts with a blue stripe and then a black vest. It's just an odd get-up. He's in much better shape than he was when he was Man Mountain Rock. This match was like 12 minutes long. Such a tedious match. Ends with a DQ, Payne disqualified for just pushing the referee, which is just such a get-out, just nothing finish. I just said this was a dud. Meltzer gave it a 0.5 star. You?
I really didn't enjoy this. This was the match on the show that I found very hard to...
It really took the show down. Yeah,
I agree.
This and kind of to a certain extent, the next match really... The show as a whole would have been a better show without those 2 matches,
Indeed.
Okay, so next we have... Flair out. He cuts a promo saying he's back. Honestly, I was kind of disappointed by the promo. He didn't say much.
No.
I know that...
Was this actually his first night back in?
This was his first night back in. I know there was heat because he agreed the deal to come back in. He did the job to perfect on television or Hennig, whatever. And then, if you recall, I think Flair even says this on his DVD, Watts kind of said to him, well, you're fucking useless to me now because you've just been pinned on national television. So they kind of had these plans to really use him. And then at this stage, they were kind of downplayed. But then Watts was removed from power, and then Bischoff was coming in. So there was a lot of chopping and changing. Because if you remember, he didn't really do anything until December, basically.
It's so weird. They just don't use him.
No.
That's why they give him a flair for the gold. It's like,
No, well, he can't wrestle for a little while because of his
Okay,
of his
I thought that was
deal
it,
with
okay.
Vince. But it's just he's just. I mean, then when he does wrestle, he's in a tag with the Hollywood Blondes, and
Yeah, him and
You know what I
Arn.
mean?
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah.
anyway, so Muta and Wyndham, Great Muta and Barry Windham for the NWA titles next. I was so confused by
Okay,
the title
do
situation.
you want- I was going to say we should probably talk about this.
Do you want to?
Do you know it?
The NWA title is the title that Flair was holding when he left.
Okay, this has gone back to be. This was the WCW title. The Big Gold Belt became
What
the
was on Sting or Vader rather.
Okay, this was okay. So basically, what they did was when WCW was bought or was formed in 1989, the NWA title was switched to the Big Gold Belt, and that was the first ever WCW title. When Watts came back in, he decided to rename
the lineage. Okay.
Yeah, rename that the NWA title, and then they had a separate WCW World title, which Vader was the champion. Then
But he had the big gold belt though.
at a different stage, because what happens is that then gets renamed the
International World title.
right?
The International World title. Think about that one.
Yeah, and then they unify the belts. Flair and Sting unify them.
Just before the Bash of the Beach '94.
There we go.
Right. But it just feels so. It feels. I imagine what somebody who doesn't watch wrestling much, flicks on WWE a year ago and is like, there's a world champion and WWE champion. It just seems very. It's that old thing of when your friends who don't really watch wrestling as much anymore ask you who's the champion, you have to explain to them.
That there's two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's something I don't miss.
So again, the referee does the kind of UFC thing, explain the rules.
You can barely hear what he says. He keeps moving his head so much.
Yep. He specifies there's no throwing the opponent over the top, and also no bashing them into the ring post.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
like, what? I thought, is this to set up a spot later? And he says you can come off the top rope. So we have Flair, Ventura, and Tony on commentary. I've written here Tony and Jesse just arguing badly. I just felt they didn't click, and this is when Jesse's starting to mentally check out as well.
Yeah, him and Flair's on commentary during this match because obviously the storyline is he's watching the match of the belt. He never lost, and you can already hear. It's the first time that Jesse and Flair had ever been in the on the same TV program at the same time. So they're both, even though one's a heel and one's a babyface, clearly they're both very much enjoying each other's company, and they make slight references to the fact that Jenny is going for senator.
Yeah, because he was the mayor of. I can't remember where he was.
I can't remember. Well, he became governor of
Something
Minnesota.
Park in wherever it was.
Yeah. Okay.
So having Rick at ringside just kind of highlighted what was missing in the ring. The wrestlers just didn't really click. The people weren't into it. Muta misses a moonsault. Wyndham hits a DDT for the pin. Flair starts strapping the belt on Wyndham. Wyndham kind of turns around, sees this, and doesn't like it. And it was a very nothing angle to start off because this was the original plan was to go with Wyndham versus Flair according to the observers at the time. And
Which makes sense because that was the plan before Flair left.
Yeah, but I don't. Did they ever really go in that direction?
Nope.
Because I've watched. I'm about 6 months further down the line here, and I've
Nope.
never seen anything else in that direction.
Flair doesn't wrestle until him and Arn get put together again, I think.
This match was, I gave a star. It was
Yeah,
okay.
I think it was a good effort. It was by no means the best Muta match I've seen in WCW when, in the early 90s and late 80s
He
in
peaked
WCW.
in 89, 90.
Yeah.
Meltzer went to star in a quarter with us.
Okay, that's fine with me.
And then we had the main event. I find it so strange this was non-title, but anyway, this was Sting versus Vader in the White Castle of Fear. So Sting flies to the castle in the Rocky Mountains. Okay, so they're flying along and they're looking at the Rockies. Okay, this is brilliant. I've seen the whole video.
Okay.
And the helicopter pilot says it's over there, but of course we don't see it because there is no White Castle of Fear.
No.
But anyway, it's just very funny. Sting comes in to the White Castle and says, "Your house is just like your personality, Vader. Cold." Then Harley goes, "Ah!" And it's just sensationally bad. Like serious close up on Harley when he does this. By the way, Harley. Every week I see more Harley, he just becomes more and more shit.
They really made a joke.
He was
out
crap
of
in the ring with his fucking pregnant belly, and no.
He wasn't grabbing the ring.
So they both tie a strap on their arms, and they're either ends of a table. So a tug of war commences, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, the center of the table is on fire,
As you do.
and they're pulling back and forward, right? And the gimmick is who's going to get pulled into the fire and burned. while the leather strap isn't at all damaged by this fire.
Yeah.
And then to be continued is at Superbrawl.
Now this tug of war was over Vader's big head and shoulder thing that he wore out.
No. It was just over a leather strap.
Okay, I thought it was. Oh.
No.
Anyway, he inevitably didn't wear it during his entrance, which I found strange because it was featured. It was on the dining room table in the White Castle quite a bit.
That thing, by the way, is really fucking expensive. You know that?
I do. I heard him talk about it on Austin's show.
So Sting hits a couple of big splashes early, then removes Vader's top and starts whipping with the strap, and Vader starts bleeding bad here. So I guess Sting was really
the
laying
top of his
it in.
shoulders. It's fucking rough.
Then
There's 2 hard ways in this match and 1 blade job.
3-way hard ways are
2-way best 3-way hard way I've ever seen.
So we're outside the ring, and Sting starts trying to drag him around and touch all the corners, like the ring post. And I was like, "What? Can you do this in a strap match?" That was the turnbuckles, isn't it?
Yeah, well, maybe in White Castle of Fear match.
Well, there you go. Sting tries another splash and misses, and I've noted here this is only a few weeks after Vader had paralyzed a jobber with a power bomb.
That's right.
And Watts had a meeting. Again, this is the value of reading the Observers at the time. Had a meeting with the entire dressing room, including Vader, to remind them that it was a work. But I've noted here Vader wasn't going much lighter. He was just laying it into Sting. Vader's back is really bleeding as the match goes on. Vader hits a Samoan drop off the second rope, which I thought for the time was quite a spot. You know what I mean?
I actually really enjoyed it.
Sting makes a big comeback. Vader then starts battering him in the corner. Sting lifts Vader up on his shoulders and walks around the ring touching the buckles, which I thought was quite impressive.
Yeah.
The ref gets bumped by Vader's feet, and just as Sting is about to hit the 4th turnbuckle, he trips over the ref's feet and falls on his face, which I actually thought was quite creative.
Yep.
And so the finish is kind of weird. Vader's dragging Sting around by the feet, and Sting grabs onto the ropes after Vader hits the 3rd turnbuckle. Vader is struggling to pull him off the post, but he could just let go of the foot and walk over, you know what I mean? Because the strap is really long, which is always the disconnect in these matches. But Sting then boots Vader off him, and Vader flies back into the turnbuckle and wins. We went straight to the announcers then. Missy and Mero tell Bischoff that they're off to do their makeup.
No. Sting takes the strap off and starts whipping Vader. Pretty bad. And Vader's hard way cut on the bottom of his ear.
Okay,
and it's fucking gushing.
The match, by the way, I thought was the match of the night. I went 4.
Yeah, I think it was about that. It was a hell of a brawl, especially for that day and back in that day. And Vader's hard ways juices, or his ear one actually at the end. I can't believe you don't remember that. It's fucking gross.
No, I'm very sleepy at this point of the
And in the point of commentary, the highlight of the commentary in the night, it was Shivani finally had that moment. You know, that guy who keeps getting
pissed off,
just pissed off with the bully, keeps getting poked and prodded and pushed and punched until finally he stands all he can stand. He can't takes no more. Vader's whipping Sting, and Ventura goes, "It's like you and your children and what you do to them, Shivani." And Shivani literally goes, "Now you shut up."
I can't wait to hear Shivani on Jim Ross's podcast now, by the way.
Oh, that's going to be fascinating.
He's there's somebody who's been disappeared for a long time. But
he's on the Monday Night War.
Top 50 moments in WCW history DVD.
I didn't.
Oh, by the way, have you seen that DVD?
No.
Obviously you haven't. It's fantastic.
Is it top 5
really
worst or best
fun.
moments?
It's just
everything.
It's just like it's very, very random. And also, one thing that bothered me, they don't have Flair's return in Greenville. You know the famous one.
The suits.
Yeah. Fire me! I'm already fired. They don't have that.
You scammer, you schemer, you no good son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Fire me, I'm already fired. Amazing. So, Ken, this is the highest rated match quality WCW pay per view. Is it one of the best WCW pay per views you've ever seen?
This is probably match quality wise the best one I've seen so far. It's one of those though. There's not when I'm watching these shows, I'm looking for stuff sometimes in places that's just so bad or so random that provides entertainment. There's nothing like that here. I mean, it's just a good show. The show as a whole, though, it was a really fun show. Match of the night, I would have given to the main event. Moment of the night, probably the finish of the main event, and the 10,000 car crashes and 7 matches. Botch of the night was the Eric Watts arm drag in the first match.
That's amazing. Yeah, there wasn't actually really that many clear, unbelievable botches. It was a definitely a solid show. I'd give it a recommendation, and it's a pretty good time capsule of of WCW in that era. You know, they're coming out of the Watts era, which is seen as the Dark Ages. Flair is just back, which is giving it a spring in its step. And you have people like, you know, Austin and Foley going over, you know, people like Paul Orndorff putting them over. And you have a very interesting, not very mentioned, incredible heel main eventer in Vader that just doesn't. He's not big in with WWE. So the fact
Vader,
that
he's so underrated.
The fact he's so green when he had that initial run. It's a marvel to go back and look at him. He's the closest thing to Lesnar that WCW ever had in terms of legitimacy.
I changed my mind, by the way. The moment of the night was when Bulldog called Sting the Sting.
Or when he said he's going to be the world heavyweight
the world championship heavyweight champion of the world.
Incredible.
It's a good show. So yeah, but they go straight to the answers. They have that little Wyndham interview, and then Missy and Mero tell Bischoff that they're going to do their makeup and go to a party and walk off the set, and Bischoff signs off to the credits. And it's just like, is that really how you want to sign off your show? But anyways, good show.
Nevertheless, okay, fantastic. Well, myself and Ken
have you decided on this review?
I haven't, but
Okay.
it's going to be a surprise. It's going to be an EC. Is it going to be an ECW?
No, well, if you want to see ECW,
okay, we'll figure.
We haven't done
something
WWE in a while, have we?
No,
Oh.
we haven't. But I think we've seen every single pay-per-view, so it's going to be tough.
But you know, you can still
might do a random in your house.
Yeah, do a random in your house.
Okay, cool. We'll do it in your house. I'm going to just pick one off the top of my head then. Let's do in your house 6.
Okay,
Do you know it?
6. Would that be February of 1996? The cage match with Brett and Diesel with Taker through the ring.
Excellent. Let's do it.
That has a known hurt Shawn Michaels match I've always wanted to see. So.
Okay, awesome. Let's do that. Myself and Ken will be back for our usual MMA slot on 103.2 Dublin City FM this Sunday at 4 o'clock. You can get archives of that show and This Ain't Fake Brother up at www.thisaintfakebrother.com.
Thisaintfake.com.
Thisaintfake.com. Jesus Christ. I thought it was going really well there. So listen, thank you very much for tuning into the podcast. I was saying to Ken this week that our listenership is going up every single week without fail. So thank you everybody who does listen on a regular basis. If this is your first time and you enjoy it, please come back next week. And if you have a friend who likes wrestling or did like wrestling, because we all pretty much know one of them, give this an L mention or link it to them. We'd much appreciate it. So on behalf of me and Ken, we'll be back with MMA on Sunday. And This Ain't Fake Brother, same time next week.